Hey everyone, what's happening? This is Norm Schriever with your host, John Coleman, the Tea and Mortgage Podcast, episode number 22.
How are you, everyone? John Coleman here. When I hear the word 22 episodes, it kind of scares me because you had to bully me into doing the first one. 22 episodes, 22 months later, here we are, and it's less of a chore at this point, Norm, I'll be honest with you.
Well, that's progress, less than a chore, huh? But that's how
now
people
again,
usually
you keep me into doing the video one though. They're always the challenge. But today
that's how I hope people remember time with me as less than a chore, huh? That's such a compliment.
Oh, sorry. That's it. That came out wrong, okay? I always love talking to you. It's just when you feel like there's other people listening, you kind of have to try to block that out.
Yeah. Well, we definitely have been doing a lot of episodes, and you and I just talked off air about how we did a episode which was more than a year ago. It was August 2023, and it was how AI is changing the mortgage industry. And so we wanted to do an update today and talk about some big improvements and evolutions in AI specifically for your business. So it's perfect timing to talk about a year later where AI is.
Yeah, it certainly is. And I remember on that conversation, that chat we were having, got back a year and a half, a bit ago, that we were saying, I wonder when we look back now where we are versus where we were back then, what level of improvements would have been. If I was honest, I'd say it's moving, but it's not absolutely as drastic as people might have feared, right?
Yeah.
That's just a personal thought. Like I remember when we might have been talking, the fear was it's going to take over the world, and we would have discussed it. I said, well, that wasn't my belief. My belief back then was AI is a tool, or technology is a tool to literally just help people make things better, but ultimately the human being is the most important part in every single process, right? But if you can have technology making you more efficient, well, I was all on for it. And as you kind of alluded to there, back in, I think it was October of last year, one of the IT people who've been working with me since literally probably as long as you and I have been working together, just prior to COVID, he came to me last year after we'd done the podcast and said, John, do you know what I think is now possible? And I went, go on. Kind of cautious skepticism at that point. He said, I think we can now achieve, because I'd always told him the biggest bottleneck in this whole mortgage process was paperwork, right? Getting the paperwork ready and getting the paperwork to us. And he said, I think I can build you a system whereby when the clients upload their paperwork, in real time, we can basically tell them if they've got it right or if they've got it wrong. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I was definitely skeptical because what I didn't want in a process was a system that didn't work, whereby you've got a message going to your client, by the way, you've got this wrong, but in fact, it's right.
Yeah.
Or you've got it right, and in effect, it's gone wrong. It would be the quickest way to lose clients pretty quickly, So,
and I think, John, to jump in real quick, I think that's when we're talking about how AI is developed, and I won't say there's a backlash against it, but yeah, a year ago it was like, oh my God, this is going to take over everything and be a perfect, replacement for human beings. And I think we found that a lot of AI tools, they do the job 90%. And whether it's replicating someone in a video, whether it's voice, whether it's transcription, whether it's, marketing and data analytics, like you're talking about, a lot of them do the job, but don't do it perfectly. And then it still takes human touch points of someone saying, okay, what did it get right? What did it get wrong? Let me handle this. Or, so to your point, I think if your fear was that the AI system wouldn't be able to do it 100% accurately, which is almost like doing it 0%, right? Because you still have to go over it all. But I think you had some pretty pleasant developments, at least with your own system.
Yeah, well, I kind of said, okay, let me be your guinea pig because like it wasn't, we weren't trying to build something that was already there. We were trying to build something that had never been done before, right? So
Mm-hmm.
literally from, I think it was basically October of last year, we've been testing this. And in effect, without getting too technical, you need to train the system to recognize a document, okay? And like some documents are going to be easier than others. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
there's a document called the employment detail summary, and that's a document that you get from revenue. It's in the exact same format every single time, so it's very easy to train the system to okay, look at this, look for this piece of information. If it's correct, give this answer. If it's not correct, give the following answer. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of easy. But there's other documents like for example, bank statements, like you need 6 months and you need to get the system to check out the dates there. There's fully 6 months. So that took a lot of time and effort. And
Mm.
payslips have got a lot of different variations of payslips.
Like
So
when there's nuance, you have to train AI in
exactly.
every single. Yeah, yeah.
So what we were basically were doing for the last year was basically testing the paperwork, seeing what the answer was, and then manually going, hold on, well, is that right? Is that wrong? And we were basically improving the intelligence of the system for the last year to the point now whereby we've launched it. Now, going back on that point, it's still all it's going to do is help. We're still here. Okay, that's
Mm-hmm.
because you cannot build a system that covers every eventuality or every little nuance, to use your word there. So you still need to be able to, okay, the system has said it's wrong for whatever reason. So, say for example, the banks need just hypothetically need 6 months bank statement, but there's only three, and the system will tell you, by the way, you've only given us three. Well, they might have opened up their account only 3 months ago, so they can't actually provide something that isn't available, right? So
Yeah, yeah.
you still need the human being, and ultimately the system we built, and I'm proud to say we're the first broker in Ireland with this system. I can't say the world because I don't know, but I haven't come across any other broker in any other country who has this at this point. But I'm sure it's only a matter of time, Norm, to be honest with you. So I'm not going to. I'll pat myself on the back for 30 seconds and go, okay, well, how do we improve it, basically? But it's still the human being at the end of it. But it just
Yeah.
it's trying to make the system more efficient for our clients and more efficient for our for us. Okay, we obviously need to protect people's data and take that very seriously.
Yeah.
What we're looking to do as well is basically like human beings are human beings. Like I created videos to show people how to do it, right? If they can have, but we really need to have an onboarding session with them for about 10 minutes to go. This is what you need to do. This is where you put your paperwork. This is the button you press, and there you get your answer, right?
Mm-hmm.
And once we do that, I'm very confident it's going to make like if you put an extra 10 minutes in at the start, it saves so much time for everyone in the long run rather than having to send all sorts of questions because they didn't read the video or follow the instructions. And we're all human beings. We want to just do it. Like,
Yeah.
rather than, my God, do I want to watch this video? Do I want to read all these instructions? Gathering paperwork for people has been the biggest pain in this process and will always be the biggest pain. But what we
Yeah.
just try to do is try to make it I suppose to make it easier for people. Right?
Yeah. Make it easier, smoother, and to your credit, I'll sorry to jump in, but I'll toot your own horn or pat you on the back here. A lot of people use AI.
30 seconds only, Norm. Then we move on.
Only 29 seconds, but a lot of people, we've had these discussions for a long time about AI and how it could help. And, like you said, a year ago, more than a year ago, we did a podcast about it. But most people in business, they say, okay, how can it make my life easier in terms of marketing? How can I get more clients? How can I reach 100,000 people instead of 10,000 people with my text messages and robo chatbots and automatic calling and all these different whatever it is, all these AI tools. But you say, how could I make the process smoother, more efficient, and more accurate for the client? And of course, it benefits you. Let's be honest, right? But you're client focused, which is authentic, and that's what I just wanted to point out to people, because I know you also wouldn't point that out, you know.
Thank you. Well, yeah, there's a great there's a great joy in this in terms of when you ultimately help people. Like sometimes the level of gratitude that we receive is well and above what I feel we warrant. Okay, um, but I treat this as if, well, what level of service would I like to get? What level of
Mm-hmm.
availability would I like to get? And the more you can, like, it's a daunting, and we might talk about this later. It's like buying a house. It's so out of everyone's comfort zone, right? That
Mm-hmm.
you need to feel like you've got someone on your side, right? Who's
Yeah.
there for you first and foremost. Obviously, from a business point of view, the more pleasurable, might be the wrong choice of word, but the more kind of easy, stress
Stress
free you can
free.
make
Yeah, yeah,
you can make
yeah.
the process, the better, the more efficient you can become, the more business you can do. And from a business point of view, obviously that's great, but it starts and ends with the person you're dealing with, that they feel that they're the most important person in your life when it comes to this. And that's the way it should be, because it's one of the most important things you'll ever do, apart from maybe getting married, having children, or coming to live in Ireland, which a lot of our clients are. They've come to live in Ireland, which is an even more incredible thing when they end up buying a home when they've come to a foreign country.
That's a good point. And let me ask you this: with this new system that you've implemented, I know you've worked on it for a year with this high level AI manager to build a custom
But
proprietary system for you.
he actually asked me. He said to me, he said, because I was thanking him when we finished, and I was delighted with what he built. And he said, "Well, no, thank you." He said, "You were very patient." And I like, from a bit, he was very good, because like I was their guinea pig. They probably
Yeah,
shouldn't be saying this publicly, but they probably undercharged me for what
yeah.
they actually have done, right? But I'm hoping that they will then be able to use what they've done, and bring more business for themselves. So because I was willing to take the risk, because there was no way of knowing for sure that this was going to work.
Yeah, it could have been a
It
whole lot
was
of time and money and been a complete dud, right?
absolutely. So he thanked me for my kind of my leap of faith with him. Now, it wasn't blind leap of faith. He'd been working with me for
Yeah.
5 years, and I knew his quality. So he came to me. His favorite phrase with me, and I used to always ask him different things. I said, "Well, could we do this?" And he'd always come back, "Well, John, it's doable." It was a real kind of yeah, well, yeah, but is it
But it's
doable? But
pretty
is it?
it's pretty exciting though when you think. I mean, you are one of the first. Put it this way: you're one of the first mortgage monkeys shot into space. Think of yourself like that, right? Where yeah, it was unknown, and it's one of the first things. Probably maybe I don't know if you're number one or if you're close, but one of the first things in the world having this system available to you for clients. That's pretty exciting.
Yeah, I think I've said this to you before. My life changed when COVID came. I had nothing else to do other
Yeah.
than, and I became addicted to the system and my process, and trying to make it as efficient as possible, not just for me, but for the client. But I'm a big believer. I hate duplication of work where it doesn't need to be done. So I was always looking at um, ways of trying to make things more efficient, basically. And COVID gave me an excuse, I suppose, not to go out much, and to spend
Yeah.
my time. So I've become this. I don't think quite a hermit, but I've become less sociable than I was when.
Yeah, you're still a
Um,
social butterfly, but you spent your COVID lockdown months working on your business and forward thinking, and I spent mine buying German beers and Belgian beers every night, and trying a new beer every night, and ordering a lot of shit I don't need on
you
Amazon.
sounds
So
like a lot more fun, Norm.
we 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 handled it very differently, and you're reaping the rewards now. But let me ask you this, John, with the system that you're talking about of collecting, tracking, analyzing paperwork, which is so important for clients, what would you estimate, whether it's percentage or hours, whatever, it saves the client, it saves you, it saves everyone in the whole transaction? Like, what are we talking
Oh,
about here?
great question, and probably to my shame, I don't have a definitive answer for that. Like,
Because each case is different, of course,
yeah, it's more a case of, well, obviously I have one of my team whose role it is to check the paperwork, because I always come in when the paperwork is in and it's been checked. I then come and analyze it at the back
Mhm.
end. So I really need to ask her. It's again, as I said, it's only launched a week, so it's very difficult to give you accurate. But even if it's not saving a huge amount of time, you don't know if it's making it more efficient. Do you understand? As in, like normally, like just to kind of give you an example, clients upload their paperwork, right?
Mhm.
And if they join a queue to be checked, and that we kind of have we tell our clients, once you put paperwork up and once you get 75% of your paperwork, we'll have it checked within 2 days. Okay, that's the
Mhm.
sort of. But well, obviously, if they're using our system and they're putting their paperwork, they're being told it's wrong in real time, so it can be fixed. So depending on how organized they are, right, the time saving could be massive, because if they're getting an immediate response, well, they're saving 2 days automatically, right? In
Yeah.
terms of being able to go and get what's needed. So that can have a huge impact, right? So I don't know. I don't have a definitive answer to that question. As I said, probably to my shame, but I built it on the basis that I know it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's do this too on the next podcast next month. Why don't you ask that wonderful team member, that professional in your office
Razzie.
who,
Yeah.
yeah, and we'll see what she says about how much, she quantifies it as how much it's really helping, and
Will
that
she
would
tell
be
me the
interesting to
truth?
see.
Will she tell me the truth, or that's a different question? That's a different question.
Yeah, I don't know. Hopefully she will. I don't know, but no,
Because
but
they
that's
don't,
super
you don't know.
interesting.
But then they might be worried I'll hit her with a whole heap of other work to do. So
Yeah, yeah, true.
you kind of need to be. But I do know as long as it's speeding. Obviously, we have the internal process in here, but if it's speeding the information going back to the client, it can
Yeah,
only be a benefit to the whole process and only be saving a huge amount of time in the whole. Because ultimately, our role in this process is to help clients get ready and get approved, and then they can go and find a house. So, in real terms, the quicker we can make that happen, it takes more of the stress out of buying a home. We're never
of
going to take it
course.
all.
Yeah.
We're all never going to take it all, but if we can make this part a little bit easier, well, then I feel we've added to the sort of to the journey,
Well,
shall we
and
say?
with any transaction, with the mortgage, with the real, it's a lot of hurry up and wait, right? And that's very stressful for clients. And anything you could do in real time instead of, like you said, waiting in queue for 2 days, and then that almost gives them a competitive advantage. It definitely gives them a customer
Massive.
service, boost,
Uh,
but it gives them almost an advantage over everyone, especially if they're dumb enough to just work with a bank directly. You have.
you can use those words. I couldn't possibly comment like that.
Yeah, I could feel free to say that where you can't. But so let me ask you this, John. What's since this has worked swimmingly, where do you think you're going to be calling your AI guy and saying, "Hey, let's work on this next"? Like, what's the next iteration of AI integrated into your business where clients may benefit?
Well, on this, that's a great question. On that particular um, subject, I did say to him, "I'm sure there's something going to be better, or this process can be improved." Because what we've also done with in the background, it does two things, and it's also, as well as checking if it's right or if it's wrong, and this is then to help our internal process thereafter. It's also analyzing the bank accounts and the pay slips,
Hmm.
right? So from a back end, it's helping us with the because we spend a lot of time analyzing the paperwork before it goes anywhere near the banks. Because what we want
Hmm.
to do is we don't want to putting an application into the bank that they're going to turn around and say no. So we do a lot of forensic analysis, but it's helping on the back, like unbeknownst in the background, it's also helping us with that process. We have basically it's analyzing the bank accounts, giving us what's happening on a monthly basis, telling us that the client might have told us they're earning 50,000, but the pay slips might actually only suggest 40. So the quicker we can get that information back to the clients to say, listen, that's going to have an impact, the better. So there's a lot in the background going on with this process. As for what's coming next, well, I'm working on other projects at the moment that are kind of, well, they're not client focused, but they're internal process focused. In that, we have to. I just sometimes think this is crazy in 2024, but there's a lot of duplication of data inputting. Okay, so we have all the information on our system, but then we're putting an application into a bank, or we're putting an application into an insurance company. We then have to manually type that in again, right? So what I believe can be done, again, say one of our processes when we're putting an application into the bank, we have to type the whole thing in. I've literally just finished building a system whereby we press a button, it takes all the information from our system and puts it into the bank system, and then we just verify a few things. So from a process that was taking 40 minutes to do, we have it down to 10 minutes. And the client won't see that from their experience, but it'll help them get a quicker answer. Okay. And ultimately, it helps us give, like, the knock-on effect is, okay, something that might have taken us 40 minutes, it's only now taking us 10 minutes. We can use that extra time to make a phone call to the client to advise them, to make a phone call to the bank to chase what's going on. So there's a lot of kind of, it just, taking time away from manual processes helps give the kind of, hold the client's hands in a much better way.
That's an awesome point, and I love that. It's almost like you're removing log jams. You're removing log jams in the system that take too much time. So you're taking away unnecessary or duplicated or redundant.
Unnecessary when you're just duplicating data that's already there. It just doesn't make sense for another person to have to type the same information into a different location.
So John, you're using AI to take away unnecessary human, human interaction and time in the process to free up time to spend with human beings, meaning you're enhancing the human touch and the customer service, the phone calls, the explanation, being there for clients, because that's a huge burden. I know on you how much time you spend on that, and you like it, but I mean, with so many clients and people so far down the road in the process, months and months or a year, that takes up a huge amount of your day. But so with that 30 minutes you just freed up, well, like you said, that could be a phone call, that could be a personal email, that could be a meeting with someone, answering a question. And so I love that you use AI to sort of cut the fat and take out the redundancy and the inefficiency, and then to use that time for more meaningful human interaction. I think that's a brilliant way to look at it. Yeah.
And that is the way I look at it, because it's funny, the more sophisticated our system is becoming, I'm not becoming less busy. So so I'm not sure. Like I was building this and using this all with the concept of, well, this should free up my time, but in truth, I'm not freeing up my time. I'm just giving better service every day, and that's resulting in more business coming in, and it's a sort of a snowball effect, which is a great complaint, by the way. Don't get me wrong. I'm not.
Of course, and most importantly, I'll keep underlining it, but the client benefits and has a smoother transaction, more accurate. Those log jams are removed. They have even a competitive advantage. So let me ask you this then.
The competitive advantage is important because ultimately the biggest challenge for people at the moment, assuming that they're going to get their money from the bank, the biggest challenge is actually finding a property. And some people, and it's something sometimes is the advice I give people, is don't fall in love with a house until you have the bank saying yes. So in real terms, the quicker you can have the bank saying yes, the quicker you can get moving to the market. Now, I do fast track that slightly, as once I've seen the paperwork, the bank might have said yes, but the level of analysis we do, I think 95% of every application we go into the bank is approved. So we don't send it in unless we have that level of
garbage in, garbage out, right? So you're not breaking people's hearts when they actually see a house they love.
And if I do believe a case is kind of 50-50, shall we call it, I'll call that out, because there'll be people saying to me, we love this house. And I go, okay, we'll submit your application now. In a perfect world, I wouldn't. Okay. And that's what I would say. But say, listen, let's see what come back. We might get lucky. And sometimes you do get lucky. So I know it's a strange thing to say when you're talking about lending, but your application could land on the right desk rather than the wrong.
Yeah.
So there is always a little bit of luck along the way. So, but I look at the application and go, well, how strong is this? And I can make a pretty strong assessment myself. But bear in mind, I'm an optimist by nature, but the banks turn you into kind of a
yeah. Good way of putting it.
Less than optimistic, shall we call it. So you need to be really careful with the level of advice or expectations you give to people, because it's incredibly emotional, right? About buying a house, you see your future, you see your dreams, you see everything, and for the bank to take that away from you, and me being the middleman in that whole process, you just need to be very wary of not over-promising, telling people as you see it, even if they don't like hearing it. You're better off being very clear and firm. As I said to you previously and before, actually, I like to tell people I'm like the teacher you didn't like when you were at school, but you knew they had your best interest and were talking sense,
And those lessons pop up, 20 years later, you're like, oh yeah, I appreciate that teacher now, right? So
exactly. Maybe not in the moment, but so I don't always say every client likes me when I'm giving this information, but it comes from a good place with their best interests at heart.
Yeah, and they appreciate it. Well, John, and now this is becoming an annual hallmark for us, is our annual AI review. And so 2025, what are we going to be talking about? Flying cars and Terminators and the machine versus human war? I think we thought that was going to be 2024. Maybe we'll put it off a year, huh?
I don't know. It's very difficult to say. Like I'm fully on board with the concept, but my view on it is very much it's an enhancement rather than a replacement. Now, I feel I've done a lot of work in-house, but I'm always open to new ideas. So what I don't know is what I don't know at this moment in time, if that makes any sense. Like the mind boggles as to, like, go back 5 years ago. Would I have thought what I have built right now was possible? Not a chance, right? So I think I remember trying to use an OCR tool 5 years ago. Right, like I was always trying to make things better, and it was just an absolute disaster, right? So, but it's come the technology world has come so far so quickly, but I think I might be wrong in saying this, but I just feel it's stalled a little bit. The jump isn't as massive as it has been, but obviously. It's like when you take up a new sport, your improvement can be amazing straight away. And then the next stage of improvement takes much longer and a much shorter period, much harder to achieve,
it goes from concept to actual implementation. There's always hiccups and setbacks and inefficiencies.
What we will do is we might re-listen to this before in a year's time and see what we predicted. I'm saying it'll have been enhanced, but it won't be, oh my God. Does that make sense? It won't be that basically, well, I didn't see that coming, right? Because at this point, in truth, you'd almost go as far as to say, how big is your imagination, And I'll go back to what I used to always ask the IT guy, the AI guy, I said, well, is it doable? Can we do this? He'd always come, it's doable, but, right, it's not cost effective. Well, I think a lot of things are now doable, and the big difference is they're now cost effective.
They're getting there, yeah. Interesting. And one, just from a big picture historical standpoint, you were talking about you're just as busy, even though you have smoothed out some inefficiencies and saved some time. And back in the 30s, 40s, 50s, especially probably 50s and 60s in the US or, abroad in UK when people were getting washing machines and they were getting what else? I don't know, what other, devices they were getting. Everything was being now electric and it was supposed to
The Hoover.
the Hoover, exactly. And it was supposed to save the average housewife so much time that she was supposed to be just sitting there with their feet up and working 2 hours a week. And so as much technology as we get, it may free up time, but when it becomes the norm, then it's like you're almost behind the curve and you're penalized if you don't use it, but you're not necessarily rewarded if you do use it. And we stay busier than ever because you may free up an hour, 2 hours, 10 hours a week with AI, but what are you using that time for? And a lot of people, this is where the human element comes in, are very good at wasting time and very
Yeah,
good at
absolutely. Yeah.
creating inefficiencies. And if your system is broken, then saving time doesn't really help you, right? There's still going to be log jams and holes in your system. So I think that's where you're smart to look at how that time you save could be best allocated and how we
Yeah.
can smooth out the system. So
And
hopefully,
that's a great question. And I am
yeah,
using, you mentioned this in earlier, but I am using um, systems, AI systems or technology systems in terms of trying to make it more efficient to bring more business in, right? Which I
mhm,
wouldn't have time to do otherwise. So there certainly is like there is that expression of being a busy fool, and
yeah,
you don't want like if you're freeing up a lot of time, you need to be then productive with that time. So is it all right? Okay, we can give a better customer service, but then ultimately, it, how do you bring more business in? How do you or how can you help? Like my view on this is very simple. The better service you give to one particular client, so if you can give them even more time, that one person is worth another two or three people in from a business
yeah,
point of view. Like
yeah,
because word of mouth is still the greatest form of kind of recommendation of
yep,
business generation. Like we do a lot of online advertising, as you know, right? But the first thing I say to people is when they get talking to me, I say, listen, you're putting your trust in us or in me. Please go away. I'm not really selling you anything, but you are one of the biggest decisions of your life. You're putting your trust in me to help manage you through the process. So please, if you haven't been given my name to someone, go away and do your own research on us and our company because um, that's what I view as the most important thing here
yeah.
is the trust element because it's huge what you're doing,
Well, the best advertising you could do is do an amazing job for clients, right? And that's
Yeah,
the best way to generate business, like you said. So, and even if you could help people more personal touches, more time, you could answer more questions, you could guide them earlier in the process. That's huge. So,
yeah, no, we pride ourselves on answering every single question that comes at us, whether it be um, complex or simple. That I need to like for me. That's the differentiator between you mentioned people going directly to the banks earlier on. For me, well, they want someone on their side, right? If they go directly to the banks, they're left as a sort of they're one person in a whole big entity. When they choose to use a broker, whether it be me or any other broker, what they want is they want this person to be on their side, no matter what question that they have, that we're there for. So the um, we're very efficient at that. Now, I'm not saying we haven't the odd time missed something, but that would be I would drive that into every one of my team is in listen, clients needs to be responded to as quickly as possible.
yeah,
It's not, I'm not saying try and ask a question, it's not as if they get an online response immediately, but within a few hours that we're back to them, so they're not left in a vacuum of wondering. I mean,
yeah.
there's nothing worse than that. When again, this is a process that they're not familiar with, and it's not as if they're buying a pair of shoes; they're buying a new house. So
Yeah, that's
they
huge.
need to feel that we're there for them every step of the way.
That's perfect. So yeah, AI, a very useful and effective tool if directed, if pointed in the right direction and used for the right means. So we'll definitely keep everyone updated in 2025, which will come way too quick. We'll
Oh,
be saying,
God.
"Oh my God, I can't believe it's October 2025." We'll be saying that very quickly. So
Oh,
thank you, John, for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. So that was our discussion about AI currently in the mortgage business and with JC Mortgages here in 2024. And of course, we'll keep you updated what tools we're implementing and we see working. And very soon we'll have our AI year in review in 2025, huh, John?
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks everyone for listening. Hope we didn't wreck your head with too much technical talk, but it's a passion of mine, and it's all about really just make the process as simple for everyone that we're working with.